Application of the Eightfold Path in Life. Right mindfulness, foundation of all practices. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Right mindfulness is the spiritual compass of life, and it is the daily practice of all practitioners. In the Eightfold Path, the most important aspects are right view and right effort, followed by right mindfulness. When one possesses right mindfulness, the speech will always be compassionate, harmonious, cultured, and beneficial. When right mindfulness leads, the actions of the body will refrain from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, avoiding work-related accidents and traffic accidents. Right mindfulness helps to ensure lawful careers that are in accordance with the customs and culture of the local communities in which we live, making it an integral part of daily life. Right mindfulness is considered a firm foundation. Although it is the seventh factor, right mindfulness is regarded as the guiding principle for all behavioral methods and perception adjustments, directing human feelings into the orbit of righteousness. The result of this practice reaches the highest level. First, right mindfulness is the awareness of both the external and internal worlds, free from any emotional attachment, attitudes, or perception. Awareness of the external world is something that all of us experience almost 24 hours a day, 12 months a year. As long as humans are alive, awareness of the external world continues, even in the case of a fetus within the mother's womb. Babies begin to form their life instincts and are aware of the external world through their contact with their mother's body. This is the external world in this situation, touch. The difference between a practitioner of mindfulness and someone who does not practice mindfulness lies in the contact. An ordinary person becomes attached, leading to two negative reactions, either craving for what feels agreeable, sweet, cute, comfortable, aligned with their individual and collective karma, or aversion to objects, situations, events, people, or contact that is unappealing, resulting in resentment, harm, exclusion, or retaliation. Right mindfulness is a process of adjusting one's perception, attitudes, and emotional responses, helping the individual avoid falling into these two extremes. As a result, the practitioner eliminates and overcomes greed and hatred, thus uprooting ignorance. In other words, by practicing right mindfulness, one is able to resolve much of the impurities of the body and mind. Internal right mindfulness. When it comes to the internal world, controlling one's thoughts and ideas is far more difficult. Most of the mind's deep activities are unconscious. Unconscious mind is like stealth aircraft, undetectable by radar unless highly advanced systems are in place. Unconscious thoughts are like covert agents. When there are careless thoughts or a lack of control over the mind, these agents appear and take over, making right mindfulness the victim of a coup, leading to spiritual problems. For these covert agents, we must create specific plans to subdue them. Establishing right mindfulness with the internal world primarily involves locking past experiences at the point of their origin, allowing circumstances and conditions that lead to existence, development, and effort to unfold naturally. Locking away these past experiences in the time and space where they originated helps the practitioner establish mindfulness. Poet Ho Zen once remembered his beautiful love and expressed it with these two lines: "That tender moment of first attachment, for 1,000 years, who could easily forget?" These are the beautiful images of an idealized love, where two hearts beat as one, sharing the same breath every turn of life. This fleeting attraction captivates the heart, being drawn in by appearance, voice, laughter, mannerisms, or the cultural background of the person loved. Most people, especially in their first love, find it difficult to forget these images. These images stay with them for life. This love is called idealized love. Anything idealized is not real, and holding on to idealized images in the mind kills the love that is present. Memory, or the brain's ability to remember, is not right mindfulness. If we do not bring memory back to its orbit and detach it from emotional responses like craving and anger, it is not mindfulness. Historians and scientists with brilliant memories are still not considered mindful. Mindfulness is not just focusing the mind. Artists in fields such as sculpture or painting concentrate deeply to create a masterpiece, and nearly all areas of research or lab experiments require high concentration, sometimes to the point of forgetting to eat or sleep. But this is still not mindfulness. This is simply concentration, an expression of one-pointedness, which is considered a foundation of mindfulness. Practice of right mindfulness. One-pointedness is the focus on one object. Buddhist one-pointedness has the power to liberate suffering and use the object as a means to transform the mind, which differs from the kind of focus seen in other arts or fields. Buddhist dictionaries often define mindfulness as tranquility, which means keeping the mind calm or looking inward in silence. Many people look inward, but the more they look, the more they suffer. For example, the author of the song The Ways of Life looked inward and lamented, reflecting on life through a shattered mirror. After so much turmoil, people tend to return to themselves. When we review our interactions, our social relationships, and our behavior in various circumstances, we clearly see the situation. Life is mostly without joy or happiness, filled with misfortune. Instead of reflecting on life through right mindfulness, grounded in the present moment, the author encouraged looking at life through the shadows of the past. Shadows are things of the past, not of the present, which is unfolding, which is, when we look at life through the lens of the past, all we see are unhappy experiences reflected through shattered mirrors. We have hundreds of intact mirrors, but by reflecting inward incorrectly, we only see distortions, errors, and dead ends. A shattered mirror distorts the face, and the objects reflected in such a mirror are broken, not true to their original form. Quiet reflection without proper awareness is still entangled in worldly attachment. This series of silent reflections leads to disillusionment, despair, and frustration. Mindfully observing both the external and internal worlds might seem easy, but in reality, the depth of mindfulness goes much further. We must observe without attachment, becoming aware and reflecting on the real world as it is. Only then can it be called right mindfulness. One-pointedness in Buddhism, as mentioned, has the ability to free one from suffering and to use objects as tools to transform the mind. This is different from the kind of focus in the arts or other field. The Buddhist dictionaries often define mindfulness as tranquility, which means to maintain a calm mind or to reflect inwardly with a clear mind. Many people look inward, but the more they look, the more they suffer. For example, the author of the song The Ways of Life looked inward and lamented, reflecting on life through a shattered mirror. After so many ups and downs in life, people tend to turn back to themselves. They watch their social interactions, conduct in relationships, and they see clearly that in most cases, life is not filled with joy and happiness, but instead with misfortune. Instead of reflecting on life through right mindfulness, focusing on its present reality, they reflect through the shadows of the past. Shadows belong to the past, not the present, which is still ongoing and is. When we observe life through the lens of the past, what we perceive are only the unhappy experiences and the flawed understanding we hold in our broken mental mirrors. We have many healthy mirrors, but when we focus on the wrong methods of reflection, everything appears distorted, flawed, blocked. A shattered mirror distorts the reflection of the face, and the objects reflected in that mirror are broken too, not their true form. Quiet reflection without proper insight causes people to become trapped in attachments to the world. Transcending through mindfulness. Right mindfulness, in its essence, means to observe and remain aware of the external and internal worlds in their true form, without being attached to them through emotions or biases. Right mindfulness helps free the mind from attachment to the two extremes of craving and hatred. When there is mindfulness, the body and mind are purified to a significant degree. Practicing mindfulness is about living fully in the present moment, not entangled by the past or the future. People often misunderstand this, believing that practicing mindfulness means being irresponsible. But in truth, mindfulness means living dynamically, energetically, joyfully, and free from attachment to results. Mindfulness acts as a way of neutralizing emotional reactions, helping us see the nature of suffering, happiness, and the neutral state in life. Practitioners must focus on emotional detachment to overcome the grip of desires and ill will. Through this process, one uproots ignorance, right mindfulness, and fear. Fear is often the foundation of many negative mental states and is a serious obstacle to mindfulness. Fear manifests in physical reactions like trembling, a racing heart, shortness of breath, and anxiety. Without addressing fear, one cannot effectively practice mindfulness. Mindfulness also involves transforming negative emotional energy like fear into a calm state of awareness. By confronting fear directly, practitioners are able to dissolve it. A mindful person is free from fear, able to observe everything happening inside and outside themselves without becoming attached. In the Pali Canon and the Mahayana scriptures, mindfulness is taught in 4 main categories: body, feelings, mind, and mental object. 16 methods of breath meditation focus on mindfulness of the body, while there are other methods focusing on feelings, mind, and dharma, mental objects, for developing joy and happiness. A common meditation involves observing one's breath, becoming aware of how it moves in and out of the body, calming the mind and purifying. This practice helps practitioners overcome sickness and achieve longevity. Mindfulness in daily activity. Mindfulness of breath should not only be practiced during meditation. During short breaks of 15 or 30 minutes after 2 hours of work, instead of engaging in idle conversation, one could use this time to walk mindfully, activating the muscles and senses, breathing deeply while observing the sky or clouds. This helps relax the body and mind, making one feel better after the break. Practicing mindful breathing at these moments gives the body and mind a chance to reset and refresh. Mindful breathing brings health and clarity. Before exams or other important tasks, a brief 15-minute session of mindful breathing can clear the mind and improve performance. When Barack Obama ran for president, a famous photo of him meditating before an important meeting was shared widely on the internet, even though he is a Christian. This shows how mindfulness was key to his clear thinking and calm demeanor. When we observe the breath deeply, it calms the mind and brings clarity, much like how still water in a glass will allow any particles to settle at the bottom. Similarly, mindful breathing purifies the mind, making it more stable and tranquil. Mindfulness in movement. Practitioners must also be mindful in their movements, walking, standing, sitting, and lying down. Even during sleep, one should observe the body and its sensations. Mindfulness in movement is cultivated by recognizing the physical body's actions with awareness. For example, the Theravada Buddhist centers in Myanmar practice long, slow movements in meditation to the point where the walk appears unnaturally slow. In the Pali Canon and Mahayana texts, the Buddha did not advise walking at such an exaggeratedly slow pace, but rather encouraged mindfulness in natural movements. A moderate walking pace is best. Walking too slowly may seem awkward, while walking too quickly can lead to a loss of mindfulness as one is rushing to keep up with time. The Buddha's instructions are not based on time or speed, but on awareness. Walking too fast disconnects one from the present, turning the body into a machine for chasing time or task. Parents should teach their children mindfulness in movement from a young age, particularly in their posture when walking, standing, sitting, and lying down. This contributes to their overall grace and dignity. When boys walk confidently and steadily, or when girls walk with modesty and elegance, their inner and outer beauty is naturally enhanced. Mindfulness of the body's impurities. One essential practice in Buddhism is contemplating the body's impurities. The Buddha taught that the body is composed of 36 impure elements, including hair, nails, skin, bones, blood, and internal organs. These elements are viewed as defiling the body, leading to attachment and ignorance. By contemplating the body's impurities, practitioners weaken their attachment to the physical form. The Buddha analyzed the body's composition into 4 basic elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Earth represents the body's solidity, water its fluids, air its breath, and fire its temperature. Without these 4 elements, life cannot continue. Contemplating this helps the practitioner develop a sense of impermanence and non-attachment to the body. Ultimately, contemplation of the body also involves understanding its decay. From the moment of death, the body begins to decompose, turning blue, swelling, becoming foul-smelling, and decaying, eventually leaving only bones or ashes. Reflecting on this process helps the practitioner realize that the body is nothing more than a bag of impurities and is not to be worshipped like a deity. Western societies have developed a fixation on the body's appearance, health, and insurance policies. This has led to a culture of fear, where people insure almost every aspect of their physical bodies. In contrast, in countries like Vietnam or Cambodia, where people live in poverty, fear of illness or death is much less pronounced. Mindfulness in fearlessness. Those who practice mindfulness and develop fearlessness live calmly and serenely. Fear of losing the body, fear of death, or fear of suffering holds people back, making them unable to live freely. A person who overcomes fear lives without hesitation, ready to meet life's challenges without worry or attachment. For example, monks who practice fearlessness, like the Dalai Lama, live without needing excessive security measures, even though they lead spiritual movements worldwide. They have learned to be mindful of the body and accept impermanence, freeing themselves from the fear of death. Contemplating the body's impurities. We need to contemplate the impure components of the body, which the Buddha called the 36 elements of filth, including hair, teeth, nails, skin, flesh, cells, marrow, liver, kidneys, etc. All of these are considered defiling substances because they are impure, causing the practitioner to avoid attachment. The Buddha analyzed the formation of the body into 4 principles: solid, earth, liquid, water, movement, air, and heat, fire. The solid elements consist of cells and atoms that form the body. The liquid elements include blood, pus, sweat, and other fluids in the body. Movement refers to the breath going in and out. Heat refers to the body's internal and external temperatures. Without these 4 principles, life ceases. Reflecting clearly on this leads to an understanding of non-self, anatta, and thus the practice of detachment automatically arises. Finally, contemplating the body helps us see the stages of its decay. From the moment of death, the body begins to change colors, blue or gray, swell, smell foul, decompose, and be consumed by insects until only bones or ashes remain. These processes show that the body is merely a stinking sack of flesh and should not be worshipped as a god. Western society has capitalized on the fear and importance people place on their bodies, creating an entire industry around health insurance, dental, vision, and more. If someone insures their body parts each time an accident occurs, compensation is provided for those parts. The more people buy into insurance, the greater their fear grows. Poorer countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, or parts of Africa, where people live in hardship, have less concern about such things. However, when people from these countries immigrate to wealthier places like the United States or Europe, and live there for about 3 years, their fear of illness begins to resemble that of the locals. They fear diseases, fear everything, and feel the need to insure everything. Insurance is nearly half of people's total income, giving them a false sense of safety. In Buddhist practice, monks don't fear such things. The Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader of Tibet, only has 2 bodyguards as required by the Indian government. While it is important to have these guards, it is not necessary for peace of mind. The Pope travels in a bulletproof vehicle for protection, ensuring safety at the highest level. Similarly, when world leaders like President Bill Clinton visited Vietnam, the security forces had to arrive half a month early to assess the airports, roads, and install security measures everywhere. Despite this sense of safety, it is fear that drives this behavior. Those who practice fearlessness, like Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, live serenely. People who live fearlessly will not die from fear. Those who are afraid tend to die because fear causes them to lose control of their actions. For example, people who are afraid while crossing the street often hesitate, making them more likely to get hit by a vehicle. In contrast, someone who does not fear waits calmly for the car to pass before crossing safely. This kind of mindfulness in physical actions helps keep us safe. Practicing mindfulness of the body makes us upright individuals. This kind of dignity is referred to as solemn beauty. Monks, in particular, should practice this way from the first day of becoming novices in the temple. Those trained well in dignity and mindfulness of the body from a young age grow to be distinguished in their conduct. For example, a novice who serves as an attendant to their teacher, cleaning the temple, fanning, or massaging their teacher, is trained in mindfulness and becomes dignified. In temples that do not train novices properly, even after 5 or 7 years, they may not have learned much. Mindfulness of feelings. We must contemplate 3 aspects of feelings: their arising, their development, and their cessation. Feelings are caused by certain situations, contexts, conditions, or emotions that appear, leading to either craving for pleasant things or aversion toward unpleasant things. To transcend them, we must recognize the causes that lead to their emergence. Many people mistakenly try to suppress their feelings, thinking they have overcome them. But over time, repressed emotions will resurface like hungry ghosts. The more one is attached to their feelings, the harder it is to release them. Suppression and repression are not forms of transformation, nor are they solution. By contemplating the arising of feelings, we can clearly see how feelings always flow in the direction of least resistance, attaching themselves to objects that are pleasing to the eye, ear, nose, tongue, or body. Pleasant feelings become like magnets that draw everything toward them, making it difficult to let go. For example, tar on the road sticks to the stones, making it nearly impossible to separate them. Similarly, when we develop feelings of desire through pleasant stimuli, it becomes challenging to detach. To deal with this, practitioners must observe their feelings as they are, without becoming attached. Mastering emotions. Practicing mindfulness in a city environment can be more difficult than in remote, secluded areas. City life is filled with distractions, and pleasant surroundings can easily draw the mind into attachment. Monks who practice in the city are said to be descending from the mountain and are meant to serve the world. Before one is ready to descend from the mountain, they must spend 5 to 7 years in training, which is called ascending the mountain, in order to build enough spiritual strength to face the distractions of the world. In reality, the term ascending the mountain does not necessarily mean going to a physical mountain. It refers to a period of focused spiritual training, while descending the mountain refers to returning to society to serve the world. Even the Buddha himself engaged in this practice daily, both in the literal and metaphorical sense. The Buddha lived on Vulture Peak Mountain, but every day he would descend into the city of Rajagaha to gather alms, give teachings, and then return to the mountain afterward. This daily rhythm of ascending and descending was essential for maintaining spiritual balance. Observing anger and hatred. Reflecting on the emotion of anger, we begin to understand how we react to unpleasant situations, events, or people that do not meet our expectations. Many people believe they have let go of their anger toward minor things, such as a child or subordinate making a mistake. But this may only be because they perceive the mistake as insignificant, and therefore, they overlook it. However, when the person making the mistake is an adult or someone more experienced, their tolerance often disappears. Anger arises. Anger can arise in two forms: outward expression or internal resentment. Even if one does not outwardly express their anger, the internal bitterness or hatred can still persist. Anger is one of the most difficult emotions to master, especially when it turns into deep-seated resentment. When a person suppresses their anger, they may appear calm, but deep down, the seeds of bitterness remain. Mastery over hatred. Contemplating resentment and anger, practitioners realize that overcoming these emotions is key to true liberation. Suppression of anger is not enough. True mastery involves letting go of the deep-rooted causes of anger and resentment. When a person holds on to a grudge, they may suppress their feelings temporarily, but eventually those feelings resurface, often in unexpected ways. Only by observing the arising of anger with mindfulness can one overcome it. Mastery of anger and resentment is one of the hardest tasks in the practice of right mindfulness, but it is essential for attaining inner peace. Overcoming resentment is a critical part of freeing oneself from emotional bondage. Resentment often lurks beneath the surface, appearing in subtle ways. Many people suppress their anger toward others, but that anger can resurface later in more dangerous forms. To truly free ourselves from resentment, we must confront its root causes and learn to dissolve the underlying emotions. Letting go of resentment frees the mind, and only then can the practitioner experience true peace. Hatred is even more dangerous, manifesting as a general disdain or contempt for someone or something. While it may not always be outwardly expressed, it can linger inside the mind, creating negative thoughts and feelings that harm both oneself and others. Overcoming hatred requires mindful reflection on the feelings of anger and bitterness, observing their origins and working toward letting them go. By transforming hatred into understanding and compassion, one can attain liberation. Hindrances to mindfulness, sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor are often referred to as the twin brothers of laziness. These mental states prevent clarity of mind and lead to a state of dullness or lethargy. Sloth is a state of mental laziness, where the mind lacks clarity and decisiveness. It causes a person to become indecisive, constantly overthinking and failing to make clear decisions. Torpor is a physical condition where the body feels drained of energy, leading to drowsiness or fatigue. This may even manifest in symptoms like sleep paralysis, where one feels unable to move or wake up properly. Both sloth and torpor are obstacles to mindfulness because they cloud the mind and body, making it difficult to practice with clarity. Practitioners who struggle with these hindrances may find themselves caught in a cycle of lethargy and mental confusion. Overcoming these obstacles requires mindfulness, physical exercise, and an active effort to engage the mind in positive activities. Restoring physical and mental health is essential for overcoming sloth and torpor. Hindrance of restlessness and worry. Restlessness manifests both physically and mentally. A person may pace back and forth, fidget, or struggle to sit still. Restlessness of the mind causes a person to be unable to focus, constantly jumping from one thought to the next. This mental agitation prevents concentration and mindfulness. Restlessness often arises from worry and anxiety. When the mind is preoccupied with future concerns or past regrets, it is unable to remain in the present moment. Mindfulness of restlessness involves observing the sensations in the body and the flow of thoughts in the mind, without becoming attached to them. Over time, mindfulness helps to calm the mind, allowing the practitioner to overcome restlessness and achieve a state of peace. Overcoming skepticism and doubt. Skepticism, often a close companion of sloth and torpor, arises from a lack of confidence in the teachings of the Buddha, in oneself, or in the law of karma and rebirth. Doubt leads to indecision and fear, preventing one from fully committing to the practice of mindfulness. This mental hesitation disrupts the flow of concentration and mindfulness, causing the mind to waver between belief and disbelief. Doubt must be addressed by reflecting on the teachings of the Buddha, gaining confidence through understanding the principles of cause and effect, and trusting in the path of practice. The more one engages in mindfulness practice, the clearer the mind becomes, allowing skepticism and doubt dissolve naturally. 5 lower fetters. The Buddha taught that to fully liberate the mind, one must overcome the 5 lower fetters that bind us to the cycle of suffering. These 5 fetters are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness, and doubt. Sensual desire includes craving for pleasure, wealth, and material possessions, while ill will includes anger, hatred, and resentment toward others. By practicing right mindfulness, one can transcend these fetters and move toward higher spiritual states. Each fetter must be addressed mindfully, with a focus on understanding its root causes and working toward letting them go. Mindfulness allows us to see clearly how these fetters manifest in our daily lives and provides the tools to break free from their hold. Observing the mind. Mindfulness of the mind involves observing the different states of the mind, such as happiness, sadness, anger, and calmness. The mind is often compared to a river, constantly flowing with different thoughts and emotions. Through mindfulness, we can observe these mental states without becoming attached to them. We can see the impermanent nature of thoughts and emotions, allowing us to respond more skillfully to life's challenges. The mind can be divided into many pairs of opposites: good and bad, positive and negative, greedy and generous, angry and joyful, ignorant and wise. These dualities often dominate our thinking, causing us to waver between extremes. Practicing mindfulness helps to transcend these dualities, allowing the mind to rest in a state of equanimity. The 5 hindrances in mindfulness. The 5 hindrances, sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and doubt, are obstacles that prevent the mind from attaining clarity and concentration. To overcome these hindrances, one must practice mindfulness and reflect on the impermanent nature of all things. The hindrances cloud the mind and obstruct the path to liberation, but through consistent mindfulness practice, they can be transcended. Practicing mindfulness of feelings. Mindfulness of feelings involves observing the sensations and emotions that arise in the body and mind. These sensations may be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. By observing them without attachment, practitioner gains insight into the nature of suffering and the path to liberation. Feelings are transient and impermanent, constantly arising and passing away. By observing feelings mindfully, we begin to see their true nature and let go of our attachment to them. Mindfulness of the mind. The mind encompasses a range of states, wholesome and unwholesome, positive and negative, greedy and generous, angry and joyful, ignorant and wise. These contrasting states of mind often dominate our thinking, pulling us toward one extreme or the other. Practicing mindfulness of the mind involves recognizing these states without being carried away by them. By observing the mind's tendencies, we can cultivate a more balanced, neutral perspective known as equanimity. The mind is prone to shifting between dualities, leading us to jump between positive and negative thoughts, feelings, and emotion. For example, we may hear one person speak and agree with them, only to hear another opinion and find that it also seems valid, leaving us confused and unable to take a firm stance. This back-and-forth thinking creates instability and uncertainty. Mindfulness of the mind allows us to cultivate decisiveness without being rigid. A mindful mind can see clearly, with direct intuition, aligning with the natural principles of the universe, karma, and cause and effect. As practitioners progress in their spiritual practice, their ability to transcend mental confusion and instability increases. Mindfulness of the 5 lower fetters. The 5 lower fetters, sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and doubt, are obstacles that bind practitioners to the lower realms of suffering. The practice of mindfulness is essential for overcoming these fetters. Each fetter reflects a form of mental or emotional attachment. It keeps the mind entangled in the cycle of birth and death, samsara. For example, sensual desire encompasses not only cravings for physical pleasure, but also attachment to material possessions, comfort, and indulgence. Ill will includes both outward expressions of anger and internal resentments or grudges that we may hold against others. By practicing mindfulness, we can gradually weaken these fetters, freeing the mind from their grip. Mindfulness helps us see the transient nature of sensual desires and the futility of harboring ill will, leading us to a more peaceful, liberated state of being. Practicing mindfulness of emotions. Practicing mindfulness of emotions helps us navigate the highs and lows of life without being overwhelmed by them. Emotions like joy, sadness, anger, and fear arise and pass away in the mind, often leaving us feeling powerless to control them. By practicing mindfulness, we can observe these emotions as they arise, without becoming attached or reacting impulsively. For example, when anger arises, the mindful practitioner notices the physical and mental sensations associated with the emotion: a racing heart, tightened muscles, or hot flashes. Rather than suppressing or acting out of anger, the practitioner simply observes it and lets it pass naturally, without clinging to it. In this way, mindfulness serves as a powerful tool for emotional regulation, helping us to respond more skillfully to life's challenges. Mindfulness of the body. Mindfulness of the body is a fundamental practice in Buddhism. It involves observing the physical sensations in the body, such as the breath, movements, postures, and sensations of warmth or coldness. This practice allows us to stay connected to the present moment, preventing the mind from wandering too far into thoughts about the past or future. By paying attention to the body, we can cultivate a sense of groundedness and stability. For example, mindful breathing, observing the breath as it enters and leaves the body, is a simple yet powerful way to bring the mind back to the present moment. Other practices, such as walking meditation, involve mindfulness of the body's movements, helping to develop a deeper sense of awareness of our actions and their effects. Practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The Buddha taught that mindfulness should be developed in 4 areas: body, feelings, mind, and dharmas, mental object. These 4 foundations of mindfulness provide a comprehensive framework for understanding and transforming the mind. 1. Mindfulness of the body, kaya, observing the body in all its aspects: breathing, postures, movements, and sensations. This practice helps us to stay grounded in the present moment and cultivate awareness of the physical body. 2. Mindfulness of feelings, vedana, observing pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings as they arise and pass away. This practice helps us to see the impermanence of feelings and to let go of attachment to them. 3. Mindfulness of the mind, citta, observing the different states of the mind, such as happiness, sadness, anger, and calmness. This practice helps us to understand the nature of the mind and to cultivate a state of equanimity. 4. Mindfulness of dharmas, dhamma. Observing the mental objects that arise in the mind, such as thoughts, perceptions, and concepts. This practice helps us to see the conditioned nature of mental objects and to develop insight into the nature of reality. By practicing mindfulness in these 4 areas, we can develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us, leading to greater peace and liberation. Conclusion. Path of mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just a mental exercise, but a way of living that permeates all aspects of life. By cultivating mindfulness of the body, feelings, mind, and dharmas, we can learn to navigate the complexities of life with clarity, compassion, and wisdom. Practice of mindfulness helps us to overcome the 5 hindrances and fetters that bind us to suffering, allowing us to progress on the path toward enlightenment. Mindfulness transforms the way we see ourselves in the world, leading to a state of peace, freedom, and equanimity. By practicing mindfulness in everyday life, we can live more fully in the present moment, free from the distractions and attachments that cause suffering. Ultimately, mindfulness is the key to awakening, leading us on the path to liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Practicing the mindfulness of dharmas. Mindfulness of dharmas involves observing mental objects and phenomena that arise in the mind. These include thoughts, emotions, ideas, and beliefs. Practicing mindfulness of dharmas helps practitioners gain insight into the conditioned nature of these mental objects and see how they are impermanent and dependent on causes and conditions. Through mindful observation, we begin to see that nothing in our mental experience has an inherent, independent existence. Everything is subject to change and transformation. The practice of mindfulness of dharmas is also deeply connected to understanding the 4 noble truths, the fundamental teachings of the Buddha. By observing our mental states, we come to understand the truth of suffering, dukkha, the causes of suffering, the possibility of its cessation, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. This understanding deepens through continued practice of mindfulness, eventually leading to wisdom, prajna, and liberation. Mindfulness and wisdom. As we practice mindfulness, we gradually develop wisdom, the ability to see things as they truly are. This wisdom allows us to penetrate the nature of reality and realize the truths of impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. With wisdom, we are no longer fooled by appearances or caught in the cycle of desire and aversion. Instead, we are able to see the interdependent nature of all things and live with greater freedom and compassion. Mindfulness is the foundation for developing wisdom. By paying close attention to the body, feelings, mind, and dharmas, we sharpen our awareness and deepen our understanding of the true nature of reality. This understanding helps us to let go of attachment and aversion, allowing us to live with greater ease and equanimity. Final thoughts on mindfulness practice. Mindfulness is a practice that requires dedication and consistency. It is not something that can be achieved overnight, but rather a lifelong journey of self-discovery and transformation. By practicing mindfulness in every aspect of our lives, whether through meditation, mindful breathing, or simply paying attention to our actions, we gradually cultivate a deeper awareness and understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As we develop mindfulness, we learn to let go of the attachments and aversions that cause suffering, and we open ourselves to the possibility of living a more peaceful, compassionate, and liberated life. Practice of mindfulness is a powerful tool for personal growth, helping us to navigate the challenges of life with wisdom, clarity, and compassion.